Hello to all. Before anything else, we would like to introduce our group. We are the Group B students taking up N207 Theoretical Foundations of Nursing class from UP Open University under the Master of Arts in Nursing program. And we're here to discuss and talk about Pamela Reed's Theory of Self-Transcendence. My name is Ernesto España and I'm here with my group mates. Just a little background or overview regarding the theory of self-transcendence. This theory is a middle-range theory, and we know that these types of theories bridges the gap between the broad concepts of a nursing model, known as grand theory, from those hunches that are developed in the clinical practice situation. This theory of self-transcendence was developed with a goal to provide a framework for inquiry and practice regarding the promotion of well-being in the midst of difficult life situations. These situations includes aging, dying, or sudden life crises, bereavements, and so on. These are the subjects of the theory. But before anything else, let us discuss the little bit of a background regarding our nurse theories, Ms. Pamela Reed. Pamela Reed hails from the United States of America. She was born in Detroit, Michigan in June 13, 1952. She earned her BSN degree from Wayne State University in 1974 and her MSN from the same school in 1976 with concentration in psychiatric mental health of children and adolescents and in nursing education. Her PhD from the same school in 1982 with concentration in adult aging, and her dissertation research focused on the relationship between well-being and spiritual perspectives of life and death in terminally ill and well individuals. Later on, I will give a briefing about this dissertation of Reed. She is also a postdoctoral fellow in fields of higher education and philosophy. She became a fellow in the American Academy of Nursing in 1992. She received the awards for Academic Nurse and March of Dimes Nurses of the Year in 2009. She is an Associate Dean for Academic Affairs at University of Arizona College of Nursing. She is a manuscript reviewer for several journals, including Western Journal of Research or Nursing Research, Research of Nursing and Health, Nursing Philosophy, Alternative Therapies in Health and Medicine, and Clinical Nursing Research. She also served as an editorial review board member for Nursing Science Quarterly. Artilleries is also an accomplished author with several publications which includes Self-Transcendence and Mental Health of the Oldest Old, which was published in Nursing Research in 1991. This is where she conceptualized her theory of self-transcendence. Now, the theory of self-transcendence is an empirical theory of nursing. When we say empirical, it means that it is an evidence-based or there is an established proof or studies have been made that supports the theory, which was conducted through observation and experimentation. The theory of self-transcendence is a social concept theory, meaning there should be a human interaction part of it, which is based, this theory was based on Rogers' theory of unitary human beings. It works on the philosophical belief in the enduring human potential for well-being. But how does Pamela Reed conceptualize her theory of self-transcendence? As you can see here in the diagram, it shows how theories are formulated. There has to be this element of experience which we gain from clinical practice and dose abstraction coming from certain literatures. And as we practice our profession, there will be instances that we will stop and think that maybe there's something missing or there's a missing link or is there anything that I could do better? And yes, even though there are those grand theoretical concepts that can cover our actions in an attempt to find the solution, this concept seems overly broad and sporadic. What a theorist will do is handpick key concepts from these grand theories, integrate it, and there you have it. A new theory has been formulated, which can be used at the level of clinical practice, much like putting the pieces of a puzzle together. Pamela Reed considers three major influences as to the development of her theory. First is the history of science. The theory was formed from a developmental perspective of human and environmental processes of health. Development from the early days has long been associated in works of children and adolescents. In the 1970s, developmental psychology provided the philosophic and empirical evidence that development changes exist not only in children and adolescents, but also across the lifespan. This idea of revolution in the field of science, when research had shown that developmental change was less influenced by chronological age and more by normative and non-normative life events and experiences, is one major influence to Reed's theory of self-transcendence, as what she had emphasized. Another influence to Reed's work was the work of a prominent nurse theorist, Martha E. Rogers. This encompasses the history of nursing. As what I had mentioned a while ago, middle range theory usually is a branch out from a grand conceptual model. In this case, self-transcendence theory is influenced by Rogers' science of unitary human being. Roger postulates that human beings are non-linear domain without spatial or temporal attributes, thus a pan-dimensional human being. With this, we can refer that a person is at one with his environment and has a potential to utilize it for its own benefit of healing. And the third one, Reed was encouraged to develop the theory with influence from her own professional experience in child and adolescent psychiatric mental health care. Throughout her nursing career, she was able to apply developmental theories to her own practice, and with these strong foundations, she was able to integrate complexities of conflicting elements of living, dying, and aging. She postulated that by expanding one's boundaries and gaining new perspectives, self-transcendence will help a person organize his thinking and be enlightened to find a fruitful meaning to the experience despite the difficulties and challenge, contributing to a healthy state of mind and sense of well-being. Although this had been a pretty abstract concept, what brings it to the middle range is when the theory is applied to a specific group of people in all ages across the lifespan. Say, for example, a hospice nurse applied it to a group of elderlies in their remaining days of their lives, or a group of teens who had a depression because of sudden life crises. When this is applied to a specific type of person, the theory now becomes a middle range type of theory. Now, the several nursing theories were also foundational to the theory of self-transcendence. And to cite some of them, Watson's theory of human caring, it states that transcendence is integral to the understanding of the essence of patients and nurses in their inner striving towards greater self-awareness and inner healing. Parr's theory of human becoming states that co-transcending involves a relational process of developing new ways of living and transforming the self that incorporates reach beyond the old ways. Newman's theory of health postulates a transcendence in time and space as one reaches beyond illness, develop an awareness of one's pattern of self-identity and higher level of consciousness. According to Reed's redefinition of nursing, self-transcendence is a nursing process, a self-organizing process inherent among human systems and related to well-being. It is a non-linear process by which one's conceptual boundaries undergo change in concert with dynamic context in which one lives. And lastly, we know that a theory is tentative in nature and it will continuously undergo changes as new studies were conducted on ground basis of that theory that may either debunk, extend, or refine already defined concepts. A while ago, we mentioned that the theory of self-transcendence is an empirical nursing theory. So, we will discuss three of the related studies which were conducted with the ground basis of Reed's self-transcendence theory, and we will see how these studies refined the theory of Pamela Reed. The initial research used to build the theory of self-transcendence focused on two subjects, on well elders and elders hospitalized for psychiatric treatment of depression. This research was entitled Religiousness Among Terminally Ill and Healthy Adults, and it was published in Research in Nursing and Mental Health in March of 1986. In this research, elders were selected as a group potentially facing end-of-life issues. Correlational and longitudinal studies were designed to examine the nature and significance of the relationship between self-transcendence and mental health outcomes. It was found consistently that self-transcendence correlates and is a predictor of mental health in these elders. The longitudinal study provided empirical evidence for a potential link between self-transcendence and subsequent occurrence of depression among mentally healthy adults. Another study was done by Reed. Self-transcendence was next examined for its relevance to mental health among the oldest old. Here, she selected adults 80 to 100 years of age. The research was entitled Self-Transcendence and Mental Health of the Oldest Old and was published in Nursing Research in 1991. Quantitative and qualitative data generated further support to the theory. Significant inverse correlations of moderate magnitude were found between self-transcendence and both depression and overall mental health symptomatology. In this research as well, where Reed was able to identify four conceptual clusters representing different aspects of self-transcendence. These were generativity, introjectivity, temporal integration, and body transcendence. This was the key concept of Reed's theory, which will be discussed later. Elders who scored high on depression reflected weak patterns in these four areas. The result supported a relationship between the self-transcendence and mental health found in previous research, thus demonstrating the importance of expansion of self-boundaries in older adults. And lastly, another study was made that extends the current theory by examining the relationship of transcendence and other transcendence variables to depression, and this time in the middle-aged adult. This research was entitled Self-Transcendence and Depression in Middle-Aged Adults and done with Reed alongside with Caroline Ellerman. This study was published in West Journal of Nursing Research in November of 2001. The result of this study refined further Reed's theory of self-transcendence. Findings indicating significant inverse correlation between self-transcendence and depression, as well as between other measures of transcendence and depression, which supported Reed's theory. Multiple regression analysis indicated that acceptance may be another significant correlate of depression. Significant gender differences and age-related patterns of increased levels of self-transcendence were also found in this study. The study results illuminate the need to continue research into developmentally based transcendence variables related to the various experiences of health and well-being across the lifespan. Now, the next topic will be discussed by Ms. Annabelle Guevara and Mr. Rodolfo Gandesa. This is covering the key concepts central to Pamela Reed's self-transcendence theory.
Okay, thank you, Sir Ernesto, for sharing those ideas. So again, hi everyone, I'm Annabelle. So, do you have any idea what self-transcendence means? Actually, me, honestly, I don't have any idea at all. I don't even know the Tagalog version of that word. I even have difficulty pronouncing it. So with the power of technology, I was able to ask Wikipedia. It says there that self-transcendence is a personality trait associated with experiencing spiritual idea, such as considering oneself an integral part of the universe. It is one of the character dimensions of personality assessed in Cloninger's temperament and character inventory. I will not go into details with that. So it is as distinctive as the first trait concept of the spiritual nature to be incorporated into major theory of personality. It is quite a broad idea. So here, as we can see, In relation to our theory, it defines as the character developmental maturity wherein there is enhanced awareness of the environment and an orientation toward broader life's perspective. As it was discussed before by Sir Ernesto, the idea of self-transcendence is inspired by the human development theory, emphasizing as the developmental task in later life. In accordance with this theory, the developmental crisis in old age entails integrity versus despair, and is resolved the developmental of inner resources as personal maturity and wisdom. They are qualities providing well-being. So self-transcendence is a process of change towards maturity, characterized by striving for a new and deeper understanding of life, oneself, meaning and acceptance of the self, one's life self, or others' one's life, situation, and death. The developmental process of self-transcendence is stimulated by the challenges of aging and coming to terms with death. Adults with higher level of self-transcendence do not seek absolute answers to questions in life, but seek meaning in life events, as integrated with moral, social, historical context. This is somewhat like a reflection of life. Next slide, please. So next is the nursing metaparadigm. So we all know that nursing theory, some authors include these four major concepts in their discussions. So first, we have four: person, nursing, health, and environment. So let's start first with the person. So we need to understand how a person is be involved in the theory of self-transcendence, as it was explained that a person are considered to be human beings. So definitely right. So as we human beings, as we grow older and mature, we tend to interact with the people and with our environment. As time change, our environment also change. That will have a big influence to our health and affect our sense of well-being. Next slide, please. So next is health. So here, the context of health goes in hand with the context of well-being. Well-being is a sense of feeling whole and healthy, but depends on one's criteria of what wholeness and health means. As I understand this concept, I immediately remember, if you will see the diagram, or the diagram, you will see that one, that is the Maslow hierarchy of needs. It was actually redefined. In my own opinion, and I believe that as we grow older, we are also in the process of achieving the thoughts of being whole as a person. If any alteration in physical, social, mental, or even spiritual needs, we feel incomplete, right? And the health will not be achieved. Even though we suppress the stages of physiologic needs, safety needs, love and belongingness needs, self-esteem needs, and we will be able to reach the self-actualization, personal growth and self-fulfillment may not be enough. Others think that as they become successful and self-fulfilled with their life, they tend to help others just to help others self-actualize. With that, they are dedicated, or they dedicate themselves in helping others to reach that goals that they already received. They feel at that point the sense of self-transcendence. Third one is nursing. Next, okay, nursing. This is where as nurses enter. This emphasizes how we help our patient, like for example, a person with cancers, as she experienced low self-transcendence. So as a nurse, we assist through different strategies and therapeutic management, just for us to help them to promote good health and complete sense of well-being. As we go along with the topic, our role as a nurse will be thoroughly discussed. Next one is environment. So here, this explains how environment influences our patient's health and well-being. I believe that this could have a positive and a negative effect. This includes their family, community, and social network groups, even helping, and actually it includes us nurses also. So let us now move on to our next topic, which is assumption based on Reid's theory. Next slide, please. Okay. Here, according to her, the theory of self-transcendence rests on two major assumptions. First, it was assumed that human beings are integral with their environment as postulated in Rogers' Science of Unitary Human Being. Here, human beings are pandimensional. So what does it mean? Pandimensional means pertaining to all dimensions of reality. Again, human beings are pandimensional, coextensive with the environment, and capable of an awareness that extends beyond physical and temporal dimensions. The awareness may not be experienced through altered states of consciousness, but more often and more the focus of this theory of self-transcendence is awareness found in everyday practices in reaching deeper within the self and reaching out to others and to one's God. Self-transcendence embodies experiences that connect rather than separate a person from other and the environment. It is concept that enables description and study of the nature of human pandimensionally within everyday context of living. The second assumption is that self-transcendence is a developmental imperative, meaning that it is innate human characteristic that demands expression, much like other developmental processes such as walking among with toddlers, reasoning among adolescents, and grieving to those who have suffered loss of their loved ones. These resources are a part of human being not realizing one's full potential. Similarly, self-transcendence is not something one chooses or declines from using. It chooses the person. As such, the person's participation in it is integral to well-being. And as we believe, nursing should have a role in facilitating this process. Okay, that ends my discussion. Thank you for listening. I will now give you the floor to Sir Rodolphe for the next topic.
The theory revolves around three key concepts, which are important for us nurses to understand in order to apply and use it. As a framework to patient care and management, let's enumerate these three concepts here. First, the self-transcendence, as you can see in the diagram. Second is the vulnerability, and third is the well-being. Let's start with self-transcendence. What is self-transcendence? It is defined as a inherent gradual and linear developmental process resulting in an increased awareness of dimensions greater than the self and expansions of personal boundaries within intrapersonal, interpersonal, transpersonal, and temporal domains. So we can see here, when we say intrapersonally, this is the inward expansion of personal boundaries towards greater awareness of beliefs, values, and dreams. And if we say interpersonally, this is the outward expansion of personal boundaries towards others and environment. Next is temporarily, it is the toward integration of past and future in the present. And lastly, the transpersonally, which means to connect with dimensions beyond the typically discernible world. To give you more details on this, when we say interpersonal, this refers to matters inside or within a person, be it values we believe in, our philosophies in life, hopes and dreams, way of thinking, how we view the little details and situations that we face, and how we view others and ourselves. This area exists and operates within our mind. One key idea in this theory is that it is believed that self-transcendence does not only refer to expound boundaries in an outward manner, but we are able to do it as well within boundaries set up inside the realm of ourselves. Next is the interpersonal. This refers to our environment outside our body. This is how we communicate with the world, how we interact with the people around us. This came from the perspective that nature and nurture has a great influence to us as a living person. And next is the temporal. The theory postulates that as a person who is capable to undergo developmental process, we were able to hone ourselves to the passage of time continuum, and as a rational and intellectual human being, we have the capacity to integrate past experiences and futuristic outlook in life to give a meaningful view of the present situation. On the other hand, transpersonal, it is also believed that as a pan-dimensional human being, we as persons have the capacity to connect with dimensions beyond the typically discernible world. This refers to the manner of expanding a person's spiritual psyche rather. The theory postulates that we as nurses will be able to utilize the person's spiritual belief to enhance and develop themselves through religious interventions, religious conversations, altered state of consciousness, and spiritual practices. So Pamela Reed theorized that people facing life-threatening experiences may acquire this expanded awareness of self and environment, and that self-transcendence is expressed through various behaviors and perspectives, such as sharing wisdom with others, integrating the physical changes of aging, accepting death as a part of life, and having an interest in helping others and learning about the world, letting go of losses and finding spiritual meaning in life. Next key concept is the vulnerability. It is the second major concept of Pamela Reed's self-transcendence theory, which she refers to the state in which a person's own mortality becomes increasingly real, and the accompanying awareness of one's mortality causes a need for developmental growth. Reed theorized that self-transcendence as a developmental capacity and perhaps as a survival mechanism emerges naturally in health experiences that confront a person with issues of mortality and immortality. When people were faced in difficulties of life situations, this perception of mortality will be synergized. Depending on how the person will respond to this, positively or negatively, will have an impact on his developmental progress and will either expand or cross his inner boundaries. This is where a person may benefit with his or her interaction with the nurse to help him explore and lead towards the positive expansion of inner boundaries that will contribute to health and well-being. Some theorists believe that the vulnerability a person experiences in relation to personal mortality triggers self-transcendence, qualities and aids the person in overcoming these challenges by turning the experiences into one and healing and a personal growth. So this leads to the final major concept in Reed's theory, which is well-being. Next slide, please. Well-being. So last key concept of Pamela Reed's theory of self-transcendence is the well-being. Reed equates well-being to the sense of being whole and healthy in accordance with one's own criteria for wholeness and health. The concept of well-being will vary from one individual to another as a person. It's a product of its own environments, which may be separated by cultural diversity, complexities in a way of living, social dogma, and other factors that affect a person's developmental processes. So next is, we will review the relationships of these three key concepts. So first, self-transcendence is greater during times of vulnerability. Second, self-transcendence is positively related to well-being. And lastly, self-transcendence and well-being are influenced by social factors and contextual factors. We may see these relationships in the diagram as presented by Reed in her 2008 Theory of Self-Transcendence. You can see in here, we have the three concepts, the vulnerability, self-transcendence, and well-being. Vulnerability plus self-transcendence, vulnerability and self-transcendence, these two factors could lead to the positive well-being of an individual with the personal and environmental factors that mediate or moderate relationships. So these factors could either positively affect or negatively affect the well-being of a person. Next. So let's now proceed to the implications of Reed's self-transcendence theory to nursing. First, Reed says that it has a potential context for promoting healing and well-being through self-transcendence. And nurses should use Reed's theory of self-transcendence to facilitate self-transcendence. And this theory will help us nurses expand our holistic care in giving, and this self-transcendence theory will help nurses to expand on giving holistic care to our patient. and will also help us in advancing our nursing knowledge relating to disease management. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodolph. It's a wonderful explanation. I'm Carmina, presenting the application of self-transcendence. Self-transcendence is integral to well-being across a diversity of health experience that confront a person with end-of-life issues. Nursing practice that facilitates self-transcendence result in healing outcomes during health events. As we define transcendence, it's a noun that means state of excelling or going beyond usual limits. In nursing, nurses can use transcendence to understand the essence of patients and connect to their inner strength toward greater self-awareness and inner healing. Nurses come across with different life events on each individual. It might be as good as delivery of a new baby or a life crisis such as aging, loss of family member, a diagnosis of incurable disease. Dr. Reed suggests to recognize patient vulnerability. We can utilize the self-transcendence scales, as shown in the slide, developed by Dr. Reed to help identify patients' vulnerability. With this, we can access and help patients to develop their goals towards sense of well-being and sense of wholeness with the use of self-transcendence strategies, namely intrapersonal, transpersonal, and interpersonal. First is the use of intrapersonal. First is the use of intrapersonal. Intrapersonal strategies help the person expand inward and make room to integrate loss in all its diverse experience. In the case of patients newly diagnosed with end-stage cancer, we can elevate patients' stress to help retrieve his sense of well-being or sense of wholeness. We can use meditation, prayer, visualization, life review, and journaling through the course of treatment. Transpersonal strategies are designed to help the person connect with a power of purpose greater than self. It is the sense of identity or self extends beyond the individual or personal to encompass wider aspects of humankind. For example, aging is a normal process of life. Each individual undergo one stage of maturity that will dwell to ego integrity versus despair, a psychosocial crisis defined by Erik Erikson. It is the stage where nurses help understand our clients, their purpose, or feeling the puzzles of life. Examples, geriatric nursing deals not just the physical changes of the patient. They can as well evaluate the patient's sense of identity as they see their lives unproductive, feel guilt about the past, the feel that they did not accomplish life goals. Nurses can share wisdom with them, integrating the physical changes of aging, finding spiritual meaning in life, and accepting death as part of life. Next strategy will be the interpersonal. Interpersonal strategies focus on connecting the present to others through formal or informal means. Using interpersonal strategies will guide nurses towards building a support group within the community, involving our client with after the loss of their loved ones to a group of community sharing the same life event. It will facilitate support, reflection within the group. And each of them can share their insights, emotions, and feelings that they use to cope up with the stressors of losing loved ones. Sharing experience facilitates the use of self by our client, helping them to find meaning in their life, despite a part of them was lost. Nurses can assist with this transition by listening, reflecting, offering support, and prayer. Maintaining meaningful relationships and strengthening affiliations with civic groups and with the supporting faith community as strategies. At the end, we nurses will not just focus on the disease process, but as well as assessing their sense of wholeness as man through the self-transcendence theory, moving beyond physical needs and realities, dealing with patients holistically. Now, let me give the stage for Ma'am Irene for a short summary and conclusion of this study.
Thank you, ma'am, for that information. Hi, my name is Nyrene Henove, and I will be giving our conclusion to our researches. As a member of healthcare team, we should be able to handle sudden changes that might occur in our environment, especially when it involves our clients. It would be helpful if we have the tool to follow in order to prosecute our job well that will result in patients' well-being. One of which is the use of a theory. In our project, we discuss self-transcendence, wherein it is an example of middle-range theory developed by Pamela Reed. Reed defines self-transcendent as a characteristic of developmental maturity wherein there is enhanced awareness of the environment and an orientation toward broader life perspectives. The theory defined the following meta-paradigm: person as human being, environment that is composed of family, social networks, physical surroundings, and community resources, health, which is defined in the context of well-being, and nursing, which has the role to assist person through interpersonal processes, and therapeutic management to promote health and well-being. The theory has three key concepts: the self-transcendence, which includes intrapersonally, temporally, and transpersonally. Second is well-being, which is the sense of feeling whole and healthy. And lastly, vulnerability, which is the awareness of person's mortality and the likelihood of experiencing difficult life situations. Self-transcendence is integral to well-being across a diversity of health experiences that confront a person with end-of-life issues. Nursing practices that facilitate self-transcendence result in healing outcomes. Based on different researches that has been done, nurses continue to identify other health experiences in which they can promote well-being. Thus, self-transcendence theory typically measured as a human experience that encompasses a psychosocial, physical, and emotional as well as spiritual well-being.
Thank you, group mates, for a wonderful discussion regarding the theory of self-transcendence. Now, let's hear from the others. Do you have any questions regarding the theory that we presented?
So, hello everyone. I am your host, Leo. I would just like to ask, is there a tendency that a person who is experiencing a life tragedy and portrays to people around her that she is coping well, but in her subconscious mind, she doesn't feel healthy? Or just vice versa, wherein she feels healthy inside, but her coping mechanism portrayed to others is unhealthy? Is she able to reach self-transcendence?
Thank you very much, Ma'am Fe Faustino, for that question. I think as what Reed theorized, and as what we know and we learned, that the theory of self-transcendence is foundational to Martha Rogers' science of unitary human beings. And it is innate to a person to be able to utilize the environment to the benefit of his or her own healing, and that human beings are pan-dimensional. The person may be able to hide his or her own feelings. This should not be a hindrance for a nurse to explore the patient's true problem or vulnerability and to use that to expand the patient's internal boundaries and achieve self-transcendence. As a nurse, we should be trained how to interact with our patients. That's primarily the reason why the theory of self-transcendence is a social concept. And I posted this question to our group page, and one of our group mates answered and gave her own thoughts regarding the question of Mamfe. And according to her, self-transcendence is the expansion of personal boundaries. Furthermore, it represents characteristics of developmental maturity or the ability to comprehend and understand various situations beyond boundaries of self and immediate circumstances. The question of Mamfe is asking if the following people were able to reach self-transcendence. One, a person whose subconscious mind tells him or her that she is not okay, but it shows to other people around her that he or she is, or vice versa. Remembering the three major concepts of the theory, vulnerability is the awareness of one's mortality. When a person is aware of his or her own mortality, he or she feels the need to move on, and that is the point where self-transcendence came. In the scenarios asked, There's no indication that any of the persons stated shows characteristic of developmental maturity. None of them expanded personal boundaries. I can say because they are still occupied with the tragedy. The first one shows that by the way she thinks, and the other one is through her actions. So I think Ma'am Christine Evangelista has a point. Vulnerability must be recognized first by the patient for him or her to achieve self-transcendence. Okay, thank you very much, Ma'am Christine Evangelista. Any other questions?
Yes, Ma'am Jessa, do you have question?
Hello, hello everyone. I'm Jessa. My question is, how can we able to apply the self-transcendence to the young ones in facing difficulties, in difficult times? And also, how can a person able to cope up with the regrets that they have from their previous life in reaching the transcendence?
Hi, Ma'am Jessa. That is a wonderful question. As I quoted from Dr. Pamela Reed, the original purpose of the theory was to enhance knowledge about what contributes to well-being in later adulthood. But increasingly, the theory is being applied across the lifespan to include adolescents and young adults. In relation to your question, there is a scholastic study published on Western Journal of Nursing Research about self-transcendence and depression in middle-aged adults. But those findings indicate a significant inverse correlation between self-transcendence and depression. That means inverse correlation is increase in depression but decrease in self-transcendence. Multiple regression analysis indicated that acceptance may be another significant correlate of depression. As nurses, we can suggest to this vulnerable group of community to find meaning in their life by journaling, reflecting the past and the present, and reminiscing those happy moments with their family and their peers. By doing this, we can help them achieve self-transcendence. Hope, Ma'am Jessa, I answered your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Carmina, for answering Ma'am Jess's question. Is there any other questions that we want to discuss before we close the discussion? So I think we should close the discussion. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation, and I hope we learned something from it and we can use the knowledge that we learned regarding the theory to our own clinical practices. Now, if you have any questions, you can post it to our blog or to the forum so that we can discuss about it and have some interaction regarding the concepts presented in the theory of self-transcendence. Thank you very much. Again, this is Ernesto, and hope you have a wonderful day.